So, good day to everyone. Good day to all of you. For this particular lesson video, we're going to talk about Introduction to Electromagnetic Waves. Actually, this particular lesson video is intended for my grade 10 students of Escuela de Sofia of Caloocan Incorporated. But I saw that there is really a need for us teachers to upload videos on YouTube to give you sources of information for you to understand fully the lesson, particularly in this grade level, which is grade 10. So just that's why I decided to upload my lessons, starting this particular lesson, starting lesson one of second quarter up to the last lesson of fourth quarter. I'll be uploading some lesson videos in this YouTube channel. So I hope you will somehow use this lesson video to understand more your topic about Introduction to Electromagnetic Waves. So I am Mr. Virgilio D. Rochaldo Jr. They call me Sir Hill. It's the second quarter of Science Grade 10. So let's start our discussion with the Introduction to Electromagnetic Waves. So if you have ever tuned in to listen to a radio, turned on a light, I believe you turned on a light, chest on X-ray taken, felt the warmth of the sun on your skin during daytime, and even a spoken headphone during your online class, something like this one. Ngayon, nakikinig kayo sa akin using this lesson video. Somehow, all of these things, somehow you have experienced what we call an electromagnetic waves. So these particular waves are everywhere. So itong electromagnetic waves na ito, as I mentioned here on the different examples I gave to you, these are everywhere. So we experience these day by day. We experience these almost every second or every minute of our lives. So technically, electromagnetic waves um, is a wave which we always experience. So, in order for us to understand what is an electromagnetic waves all about, we will enumerate rather the characteristics of electromagnetic waves in this particular lesson video. We will explain how electromagnetic waves are produced and propagated. The the third one, we will compare the relative wavelengths, frequencies, and energies of the different regions of the electromagnetic spectrum. And the last one, we will solve problems involving speed, frequency, and wavelength of electromagnetic waves. So at the end of this lesson video, I want you to answer the question, this focus question, how do the regions in the EM spectrum differ in terms of wavelength, frequency, and energy? So before we proceed with the actual or with the lesson proper or with the actual discussion of electromagnetic waves, let's try first to recall or let's recall first what is electromagnetic waves or what is wave all about. So we classify waves into two, the mechanical waves and the electromagnetic waves. So in order for us to distinguish these two, for mechanical waves, it requires a medium. So ibig sabihin, kailangan niya ng medium for it to propagate or for it to travel. Because if there is no medium at all, mechanical waves will not able to travel. So ibig sabihin, hindi siya makakapag-propagate, hindi siya makakapag-travel through our spaces. While electromagnetic wave um, is a wave which does not require any medium at all. So when we talk about electromagnetic wave, even without the presence of air particles, even without the presence of any particles of a matter, it can travel, it can propagate. So, ibig sabihin, kahit na wala tayong air particles, kahit wala tayong solid, wala tayong liquid, at wala tayong kahit anong matter, it can travel because it does not require any medium at all. Unlike with mechanical waves, it requires a certain medium. That's why sound wave or without a medium, sound wave cannot propagate. Hindi natin maririnig ang vibration, hindi natin maririnig ang sound without a medium. Okay? So, um, Under mechanical wave, we have longitudinal waves and transverse waves. For longitudinal waves, we have sound waves. That's why sound waves requires a medium for it to propagate, for it to travel. Para marinig natin ang sound, kailangan meron siyang meron siya or meron siyang medium kung saan siya magta-travel. Like in solid, in liquid, and even in gas particles. So transverse waves naman, water waves, we cannot have tidal wave without water, of course. That's why the water particles serve as the medium for the tidal wave to propagate or for the tidal wave to travel. So these two mechanical waves require a medium for propagation and um, for them to travel. While electromagnetic waves has or electromagnetic wave has different forms. We have the light or visible light, microwaves, infrared rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, and radio waves. So later we will try to discuss these different electromagnetic waves. So, what type of waves are electromagnetic waves? So, we classify under mechanical wave, na-classify tayo ng sound and water as transverse and longitudinal wave. So, these two transverse and longitudinal waves are the types of waves depending on their movement or depending on the movement of the wave itself. So, paano ba sila gumagalaw? Paano ba ang kanilang propagation? So, if we're going to distinguish these two wave. So we have two different waves. We have the transverse wave and the longitudinal wave na tinatawag natin. So if you're going to distinguish these two, babalik lang tayo, i-recall lang natin yung diniscuss nyo during your grade 8 about waves. So when we talk about transverse wave, ito yung ganito yung itsura ng transverse wave. It is moving up, down, which is perpendicular also. Okay, so it forms a 90-degree this here. So nagpo-form siya ng 90 degree, while in our longitudinal wave, ganito yung itsura niya. It's like a spring. Okay, para siyang pa-spring. And it has also different characteristics. Well, the compression, rarefaction, and compression, another compression. While in transverse wave, it has stress, it has trough, it has amplitude, which is the height of the wave, and the wavelength here in transverse wave is being measured through the distance of two consecutive crests or two consecutive trough. So that's how we measure the wavelength of transverse wave. So two crests or two trough. This one is the trough and another trough. So that's how we measure transverse or wavelength of the transverse wave. While in the longitudinal wave, we are measuring the wavelength of a longitudinal wave through the compression, through compressions of this longitudinal wave. So through compression natin siya mini-measure. From one compression to another compression, that's how you measure the wavelength. Actually, an electromagnetic wave is a transverse wave. So we classify all electromagnetic wave as transverse wave and not a longitudinal wave. So technically, a wave or an electromagnetic wave has amplitude, has wavelength, has crest, has trough, and it is propagating and traveling something like this one in the illustration. Para siyang ganitong nagta-travel. So there is an amplitude or the height of the wave. May wavelength tayo. Meron tayong crest. The highest point, kung gaano kataas doon ang nare-reach ng wave natin, and the lowest point naman yung tinatawag nating trough. And the movement of the transverse wave, particularly the movement of the water molecules, ay paganito. Kaya parang ang water molecules din natin or ang electromagnetic wave natin ay para ding movement niya yung sa water wave. Kaya ganito yung alon-alon natin. Simply because water molecules or water wave or tidal wave and electromagnetic wave are the same in terms of their movement kapag nagpo-propagate na sila. So we conclude or we say that an electromagnetic wave is a transverse wave. So what is really an electromagnetic wave? How can we able to define an electromagnetic wave? So if we're going to define an electromagnetic waves are formed when an electric field couples with magnetic field. Ibig sabihin, if there is an existence of these two electric fields and magnetic fields, technically, we are forming an electromagnetic waves. That's why from the word itself, electromagnetic waves, it is a combination of electric field and magnetic field. So there is an existence of both electric and magnetic fields. So that's why it is called as electromagnetic waves. So these are waves which can travel through the vacuum of outer space. As I said, an electromagnetic wave is a wave which does not require a medium at all. That's why an electromagnetic wave is oftenly used in the outer space. So lagi siyang ginagamit sa mga outer space for signal, for GPS, for taking pictures of different planets kahit sobrang layo na nila, they use electromagnetic waves to do that because it does not require a medium at all and it can travel through a vacuum which is known as the outer space. Alam naman natin sa outer space, wala talagang air particles. Little to no air particles ang meron tayo doon. So technically, sound cannot travel sa outer space natin because sound, as we said, is a mechanical wave and requires a medium for it to propagate. So these waves oscillate in perpendicular planes with respect to each other and are in phase. So what does it mean? So when we talk about electromagnetic wave, it deals with electric field and magnetic field. So in order for us to produce an electric field, we need to have an electric charge. Because in order for you nga to produce tinatawag nating electric field, kailangan mo ng electric charge. And in order for you to produce a magnetic field, you need to have a moving charge, a moving electric charge na tinatawag natin. That's why once an electric charge moves, technically, you are creating a magnetic field already. Kaya nga nabubuo ang tinatawag nating electromagnetic wave simply because there is an oscillation or movement of charge. Kapag nagmo-move ang charge natin, technically, we are creating an electromagnetic wave. So here, in our figure illustration, na nakikita nyo ngayon, so in this particular illustration, the magnetic field here is the blue one, while the electric field here is the red one. And the direction of propagation is going there. So as you notice, the wavelength is the distance between the two crests or two troughs. So, kung titingnan natin sila at kung pagmamasdan natin itong picture na ito, somehow magnetic field runs or travel na parang pataas-baba, pataas-baba. Okay, parang something like this one. So, nagta-travel siya parang ganito, pataas, tapos pababa, tapos tataas na naman, tapos bababa na naman. Parang ganun siya nagta-travel. Well, when we are talking about electric field, this one ay parang pahiga. Nagta-travel pa rin naman siya pero somehow para siyang nakahiga. So kung i-imagine natin siya, para siyang ganito. I hope you can see my illustration there. So para siyang ganito. Let's say this particular wave is the magnetic wave and this particular wave is the electric field, rather the magnetic field and the electric field. So let's assume that this one are the two, or this particular model is an electromagnetic wave. So paano ba siya nangyayari? Or paano ba natin siya i-explain? So somehow, kung titingnan natin, this one is the magnetic field and this one is the electric field. So pananatilihin nating nakahiga yung electric field natin, this one. Pero the magnetic field ay, sabi ko nga, as I said, nagta-travel siya ng up, down, up, down. So technically, parang ganito yung magnetic field or yung electromagnetic wave natin. Since it is a combination of magnetic and electric fields, so parang ganito siya. Something like that. So, andito yung oscillation, andito yung mismong charge particle, tapos ito yung nabubuo ng charge particle. As the charge or electric charge or charge itself is moving. Okay, as the charge move, it forms or it creates or produces magnetic and electric field, both. Okay? So, pag ganito siya. And as you notice in our model, the electric field and the magnetic field, a magnetic field and electric field formed a 90 degree. Okay, nakaka-form sila ng 90 degree between the two. Ito siya, nakakabuo siya ng tinatawag nating 90 degree. Or simply, they are perpendicular. They are forming a perpendicular. They are perpendicular to one another. So technically, it forms a 90 degree because they form perpendicular or they are perpendicular to one another. So, parang ganito lang yung itsura niya. Parang ganito yung mismong electromagnetic wave natin. To give you more and vivid illustration, sige, let's have another figure, this one. So, as the charge oscillates, ganito yung nangyayari sa charge natin. The charge is moving up, down, up, down. It forms both electric and magnetic field. The magnetic field is the yellow one and the electric field is the blue one. So, dito naman baligtad naman sila. So, yung electric field, kahit naman magbaligtad tayo, it's fine. Yung electric field naman dito is moving taas-baba, taas-baba. While yung magnetic field naman dito ay pahiga siyang nag-move. So technically, they are forming a 90 degree between them or between magnetic field and electric field na tinatawag natin. So that's why they are perpendicular to one another. Okay, so let's go back. So that's how we um, describe how electromagnetic waves form. So parang ganito din siya. Okay, so when an electric charge vibrates, the electric field around it is changes rather, creating a changing magnetic field. So when electric charge vibrates, the electric field around it, changes, creating a changing magnetic field. So technically, if there is a movement of charge, you are creating a magnetic field already. So the magnetic and electric fields create each other again and again. That's why they both existing. They are both existing in electromagnetic waves. Kasi kinikreate nila yung bawat isa. An EM wave travels in all directions, but in our illustration here nga, um, only shows a wave traveling in one dimension or in one direction rather. So, pa-straight lang siya. Pero the actual electromagnetic waves are traveling in all directions kasi wala silang restriction pagdating sa direction. So, technically, ganito ang itsura ng ating electromagnetic wave. If there is an oscillation or charge oscillation, automatically, we can produce an electromagnetic wave. Both contains or both have or rather have both magnetic and electric fields. So the frequency is the responsible physical value that determines the physical properties of EM waves. Okay, so when we talk about frequency, it is the number of cycle of a wave in a given period of time, particularly per second. Well, when we talk about wavelength, as I said, it is the distance between the two consecutive, or it is the distance between two consecutive crests or two consecutive troughs. So, yun yung tinatawag nating wavelength. And technically, these two things describe our wave. So technically, this gives us the physical properties of EM waves. Itong dalawa na to ang nagbibigay sa atin ng physical properties in order for us to understand more what is electromagnetic waves. So here, I have here two different waves. In the first wave, we have here a wave which has longer wavelength compared to this wave which has a shorter wavelength. So dito, medyo mahaba yung distances ng two crests. Dito naman medyo maliit or maiksi yung distance ng two crests or two trough dito. So technically, they are different in terms of their wavelength, in terms of their energy, and in terms of their frequency. Okay, since frequency is inversely proportional to the wavelength, as the wavelength increases or habang lumalaki ng lumalaki ang ating wavelength, bumababa naman ng bumababa yung mismong frequency natin. At the more naman na lumiliit at lumiliit ng paliit yung ating wavelength or the distance of two crest and two trough, the more naman na mas tumataas at mas nag-increase ang frequency natin. The greater the frequency that we have. So in here, since the frequency or the wavelength rather is longer compared to the other, it has long wavelength but low in terms of frequency and low energy. So we can conclude out of this one that wavelength is inversely proportional to the frequency and energy. Habang humahaba or habang yes, nagiging longer yung ating wavelength, the more naman na mas nagiging lower ang frequency natin at lower din ang energy natin. Okay? Here, as you notice, it has shorter wavelength. Okay, so mas maliit yung wavelength or yung distance ng two crest natin at two trough natin. So technically, it has high frequency and high energy. As I said, the wavelength is inversely proportional to frequency and energy. If the wavelength goes up, the frequency and energy goes down. That's why here, the more na shorter ang wavelength natin, the more na mas high ang frequency natin at the more na mas high ang energy natin. So this one carries huge amount of energy because it has high frequency. Okay? It is in terms of frequency, it is really high. So yun yung difference ng dalawa na ito, na may longer ang wavelength at may shorter ang wavelength. So paano ba natin kinukuha ang frequency natin? So paano ba natin siya or paano ko ba siya paano ba natin siya mas lalong maintindihan pa fully? What is really wavelength all about? So when we talk about wavelength, para siyang ganito. Let me end my presentation. It's hard for you to understand. Okay, here. Stop sharing. So nakikita niyo naman na siguro yung board ko. So let's say from here to here, sabihin natin na ito yung wave. Okay. Halimbawa, hindi talaga ako maganda magsulat. Tapos from here to here again, pasensya hindi ako magaling mag-drawing. Yan. Okay. So these are two different waves. Magkaiba yung wave nila. Tama? Sasabihin natin, this one is 1 second. So yung susunod na another length na ganito ay 2 seconds na. Okay? So this one is 1 second. This one is 1 second. Okay. So paano natin malalaman? Okay? Paano natin malalaman kung ano ang frequency? Sa madaling salita, I'll explain to you kung paano ba or kung ano ba yung frequency na tinatawag natin. Here, as you notice, this one is whole cycle. Mula dito, tapos pa ganun, isang cycle na yan ng wave. Okay? This one has two cycle. 1, tapos 2. Okay? Meron na siyang 2 cycle here ng ating wave. Okay, so meron na siyang 2 cycle of wave. And let's say, pareho silang ganyan. Pareho sila. So, 1 second yan and 1 second. For every 1 second, here in this particular wave, you have one complete cycle of wave. So, technically, this has one revolution or one cycle rather. One cycle, complete cycle per 1 second. So, 1 cycle per second. Okay? Here, kung makikita nyo, mas maliit yung wavelength niya. This one is the wavelength. Medyo maliit yung wavelength niya. Compare dito na ito siya, mas malamang nandito pa yung wavelength niyan. Medyo malayo yung wavelength niya. So, technically here, it has 2 cycles per second. So, ang frequency natin, that is how we define frequency. So, that is if we're going to define frequency, that is the number of cycle of a wave divided by a certain period of time. Just second nga yung ginagamit natin normally kapag kumukuha tayo ng frequency. So technically, the frequency of this particular wave A is 1 cycle per second or simply 1 hertz. Kasi hertz is also 1 per second. Okay? Or yung iba naman, 1 s negative 1. Okay, ganun yung ginagawa nila. For the frequency of wave B, kung kukunin natin yung frequency ng wave B, so the frequency is 2 cycle per second. Okay, so mas mataas ang frequency nito. Kasi you have 2 cycles kada segundo. Nakakabuo ka ng dalawang cycle. This one is 1 second. sa kada isang segundo. Dito, isang cycle lang sa kada isang segundo. So you have 2 cycles per second or simply 2 hertz. Or yung iba naman, 2s negative 1 or raised to negative 1. So that's how we explain what we call um, frequency. So we define frequency as the number of cycle of a wave in a given period of time. Okay, so that is what we call a frequency. Okay, so let's go back with my presentation with my PowerPoint. Let me share my screen first. Okay, so that's how we get frequency. Yan lang kasimple yung tinatawag nating frequency. So here, we have what we call the electromagnetic wave. This is the arrangement of the different electromagnetic waves that we have, known as the electromagnetic spectrum. So pag sinabi nating electromagnetic spectrum, the electromagnetic waves are arranged in order. At ano yung klase ng order na pagkaka-arrange natin dito? So as you notice here, in this particular illustration, as you notice, the first one is the radio wave. The second one is the microwave. The third one is the infrared. The fourth one is the visible. The fifth one is the ultraviolet. The sixth one is X-ray. And the seventh one is gamma ray. So this particular electromagnetic spectrum suggests that our electromagnetic waves are arranged in order of increasing frequency, increasing energy, but in terms of wavelength, it is arranged from radio to gamma rays, it is arranged decreasing in terms of wavelength. Kasi dito kung mapapansin nyo, yung pagitan ng or yung distance ng dalawang crest natin here to here, medyo lumiliit na siya as we go from radio to gamma. So papaliit, papapino, parang kumbaga papakompress ng papakompress yung mga wave natin hanggang marating natin yung gamma rays. So here, the arrangement, wavelength from longest to shortest. So the longest wavelength that we have is the radio wave, while the shortest wavelength that we have is the gamma ray. So si gamma ray ang may siyang pinakamaliit na wavelength or pinaka-shortest ang wavelength, or short ang wavelength, while si radio wave naman ang siyang may longest wavelength. So as I said, they are inversely proportional with, or this wavelength is inversely proportional with the frequency. Okay? So kung dito, from radio to gamma rays, nagdi-decrease or nagdi-decrease ang length ng ating wavelength, technically in terms of its frequency, nagiging mas higher naman yung frequency natin as we go from radio to gamma. So the wavelength is decreasing in terms of its distance, in terms of its length, while the frequency is inversely proportional, which is nag-increase naman siya from radio to gamma. So ang may pinakamalaking frequency is gamma. The highest frequency is gamma, while the lowest frequency naman na meron tayo from electromagnetic spectrum ay si radio. So ganun lang yung arrangement niya. Of course, the energy also, as we all know, ang may pinakamalakas na carrier, ang pinakamalakas carrier ng energy si gamma. Kaya nga 'di ba, it can burn you from anong tawag dito, from nuclear power plant, meltdown. So nakakasira siya ng mga genetic codes and so on and so forth. Kasi mataas ang energy na at the same time, mataas din ang penetrating ability niya or pagtagos niya sa mga bagay-bagay. That's why it can really penetrate sa mga flesh ng human at makasira ng mga genetic codes. That's gamma ray. While sa radio wave naman, although it can penetrate to a certain materials, but then the penetrating ability is low because the energy is also low. Okay? While in gamma rays, parang almost malakas yung penetrating ability niya dahil malakas ang energy niya. So here, we have radio, micro, infrared, visible, ultra, X-ray, and gamma ray. Okay? So, electromagnetic spectrum includes the following types of waves. Ito, inisa-isa na natin sila kanina. So, we have their radio. So, normally, yung mga radio natin sa mga radio station, ginagamit for telecommunications, microwaves, sa mga microwave oven. So, yung infrared waves, ginagamit ito sometimes sa thermal scanner. Okay, sa mga airport, ginagamit yan. Scanner din sa engineering, pwede din yan. Ginagamit din siya normally. Sa remote controller natin, sa bahay. So, it uses infrared waves. So, for visible light, this is the electromagnetic wave that we can, that the only electromagnetic wave that we can see. Ito lang yung natatanging wave na nakikita natin. Okay? So, ultraviolet rays coming from the sun, yung mga UV rays natin, X-ray, normally in the medical field, ginagamit ito to X-ray bones, teeth, and so on and so forth. Lungs, and so on and so forth. So, number 7, gamma rays, normally ginagamit ito for treat cancers. Ginagamit ito sa maraming bagay. For medical fields din to. So if you're going to identify or you're going to enumerate the different properties of these 7 EM waves, the first one is all EM waves are transverse. As I said, electromagnetic waves are classified as transverse waves because they are moving up, down, up, down. Okay? So number 2, they do not require any medium to travel or propagate. As I said, electromagnetic wave does not require any medium at all for it to propagate or for it to travel. Number 3, they travel at a speed of 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second, which is happen to be the speed also of light, since light is an electromagnetic wave. Ang visible light natin ay electromagnetic wave, so therefore, the speed of light is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second mismo. Kasi the light itself is an electromagnetic wave. Okay? So number 4, they can all be reflected and refracted. That's why light also are able to reflect or to refract itself. Okay? So may property siyang mag-reflect or may property siyang mag-bounce back at mag-bend. Depende sa material na um, na-encounter niya. Okay, so technically, all of these, not only visible light, but actual radio, micro, all of these 7 can uh, uh, can all be reflected and refracted depending on the material that they encounter. And the last one, they can all be emitted and absorbed by matter. So, pwedeng ma-emit ng matter at pwede ring ma-absorb since lahat naman sila may penetrating ability. Somehow, yung iba, mababa, yung iba naman, mataas yung penetrating ability niya, depending on the arrangement, depending on the frequency and the energy they possess. So these are the properties of EM waves. So itong 5 na ito. So, some applications of EM waves, for example, minsan infrared rays are emitted by objects on Earth that absorb visible light from the sun and absorbed by gases. So technically, all of us, that's why yung sa thermal scanner, di ba sa mga airport, pag dumadaan tayo sa mga bag, they use infrared rays. Okay? So sa katawan, rather natin, kapag pumapasok tayo from one country to another country, just for us to detect kung meron bang flu. Halimbawa, kagaya ngayong pandemic, as we all know, pandemic, at normally, yung mga galing sa ibang bansa na may matataas, kasi isa sa mga indication na meron kang COVID-19 or meron kang coronavirus sa katawan mo, ay nag-exhibit ka ng flu. So technically, para malaman yon, hindi ka naman pwedeng i-thermometer isa-isa lahat ng mga pumapasok sa airport natin. They use thermal scanner. Because thermal scanner gives you an idea, a picture na kung saan pinapakita yung body temperature mo. So depende sa part ng katawan mo kasi normally yung mga may init lang o yung mga nag-emit ng mataas na energy, normally sa noo, normally sa mga sinuses natin. So doon nakikita kung meron ba tayong flu through the use of infrared rays or particularly infrared rays na tinatawag natin. So EM waves are used by devices such as cellular phones. If you are now using your cellular phones where you are watching my videos on YouTube, it only uses EM waves, particularly um, using your Wi-Fi, particularly your radio waves or microwaves. So your Wi-Fi, your radio for telecommunication, X-ray machines, wireless network routers like your Wi-Fi nga na sinasabi ko, technically they are all using EM waves. So we can say definitely that EM waves are everywhere. lahat na-experience natin siya every minute or every second of our lives. Kaya mahalaga yung tinatawag natin EM waves at napakalaki ng importance or napakalaki ng role rather ng EM waves sa sa atin, sa bawat isa. Okay? So, the discovery of EM waves, actually, James Clerk, or actually the one who conducted and the one who transmitted, the first person who transmitted and able to produce electromagnetic wave through his experiment known as the Hertz experiment is Mr. or Sir Henry Hertz. He is the one. Okay, kaya nga sa kanya din pinangalan tong Hertz na unit natin. So he is the one who conducted the experiment at napakita niya sa Hertz experiment niya that there is really an existence of electromagnetic wave. But nas nauna sa kanya si Sir James Clerk Maxwell. So siya yung nauna, si Sir James Clerk Maxwell, who proposed four different equations about electromagnetic waves. And aside from that, also proposed that a changing electric field has an associated magnetic field. And therefore, through that, nakita niya that if there is a changing electric field, it produces also magnetic field. He was given credit as the one who discovered the electromagnetic waves. Okay. So a changing magnetic field generates an electric current known as electromagnetic induction, which is also happening in our generators. Ayan, meron diyang mga um, electromagnetic din na tinatawag natin. Yun naman, electromagnetism naman, yung idea doon na i-discuss sa latter part ng second quarter for Science 10. So such a combined effect results in existence of electromagnetic waves which can travel in empty space. As I said, discuss na natin siya on the previous slides. Electromagnetic waves travel the same with the speed of light since the speed of light is an electromagnetic wave. So technically, pareho lahat. Pareho lahat ng speed ng electromagnetic waves natin, which is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Okay? So, siya si Mr. or si Sir James Clerk Maxwell. So, the speed of EM waves or the formula for the speed of EM waves is given here. So, we have C, which is the speed of EM wave, which is equal to the frequency, to the product of frequency and the wavelength. This symbol is known as lambda. And this is the one being used to denote or to represent the wavelength of a wave or of an electromagnetic wave. So si lambda tsaka si frequency, where C is the speed of N wave, F is the wave frequency, and this symbol, which is lambda, is for wavelength. So this is how we compute for the speed of EM waves. And this one is being used now for us to solve some problems involving um, electromagnetic waves. So let's try to have some problems involving electromagnetic waves. So please excuse me while I am erasing the writings on this board. Sorry. Okay, sige. So let's try to use this formula for us to solve some problems involving electromagnetic waves. Okay, so the first one, ito, solving na tayo. So let's try to solve sample problem number 1. So number 1 problem, what is the frequency of a red laser beam with a wavelength of 7.4 times 10 raised to negative 7 meter? So I want you to pause this video for a while and copy number 1 and number 2 problem because I'm going to stop sharing this particular um, illustration or particular slide and para makita nyo rin yung mismong board ko ng buo sa video natin na ito. Okay? So I want you to pause this one, copy in your notebook or in a piece of paper para masundan nyo yung discussion. Pero later, magbibigay din ako habang dinidiscuss natin to, I'll provide these two problems. So we will try to solve 4 different problems para mas okay. Or para mas marami kayong basis for solving electromagnetic waves. So number one, what is the frequency of a red laser beam with a wavelength of 7.4 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters? Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen. Actually, that one is negative 7. Let me edit. Sorry. Okay, asa na ba yun? Okay. Okay, yan. So, um, stop ko na ang sharing. Okay, para focus na tayo sa aking illustration. So the number one problem is this one. Okay. Number one problem natin, I hope you can see it clearly there. Okay. So problem number one, what is the frequency of a red laser beam with a wavelength of 7.4 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters? So this is very easy lang naman. So we're going to use our main formula. Okay, the formula is C is equal to frequency lambda. So C is our speed of EM wave, frequency, and the wavelength. So in order for us to get the value of the frequency here in problem number one, we just simply derive the formula for frequency out of this formula. And to do that, we just simply divide both sides by lambda. Okay? I-divide lang natin siya both sides by lambda. And this one will be cancelled. So the frequency or the formula for our frequency is sorry. So the formula for our frequency will be, since we divide, dito na lang natin siya ilagay, C is equal to F lambda, divide, itan ko lang yung sulat ko, lambda, both sides, cancel, cancel. So our formula for this particular problem number one is F is equal to C divided by lambda. Ganun lang kasimple. Okay. Frequency is equal to speed of EM wave divided by lambda. So, let's have the given. Ano naman ang given natin? I hope magkasya sa aking board. Okay, medyo lumalabo ang ating camera. Wait lang, sorry. There, yan. Parang talaga akong vlogger. Okay, so for the given, we have the frequency or rather lambda, which is given natin 7.4 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters. At ang ating speed is the constant, which is 3. Always remember that the speed of EM wave is always equal to 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. O, ganun lang naman siya kasimple. Meron na tayong given, may formula na tayo, ang kailangan lang natin ay solution. Okay, kunin natin ang solution. Or rather, wala pa pala tayong, yun ang nawawala natin frequency. This is the unknown or required. So let's have our solution now. Solution. Wow, napagkasya ko sa aking maliit na whiteboard. Okay, so our solution, we just simply substitute the value of our wavelength and our speed of EM wave to our formula. That's how simple it is. So we have frequency is equal to our speed of EM wave is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Okay? And our wavelength is 7.4 rather, zero point 0.4 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters. Okay, so this is how our solution be like. Okay, so let's use our calculator. And for our frequency, we will have 3 times 10 raised to 8 divided by 7.4 times 10 raised to negative 7. Okay, so we have a frequency of 2 decimal places rounded off 4.05 times 10 raised to 14. Okay. And our unit, since cancel yung M natin or yung meter natin, kinancel natin pareho. At ang natitira na lang ay per second. So the unit is per second since this one is frequency. 'Di ba kanina sa slide natin or sa discussion ko, sinabi ko na the unit for frequency is per second or simply 4.05 times 10 raised to 14 hertz. Okay. This is our frequency now. Okay. This is the final answer for that particular question or problem. Yan. Ito na ang ating final answer. So, meron na tayong GRESA. Given, required, formula, or equation rather, solution, and our final answer. Okay? So, that's how we solve problem number 1. So let's proceed now with problem number 2. I hope na sinulat nyo yung problem number 1 and 2 natin kanina sa slide. So let's proceed now with problem number 2. Okay. So for problem number 2, allow me again to erase this writing. Medyo matagal-tagal na naman ito. For problem number 2, ganun pa rin yung gagawin natin. We just simply use the formula there. So meron na tayong unang equation. At ang unang equation natin ay frequency is equal to speed of EM wave divided by wavelength. So that's how we get our frequency. It's frequency divided by, sige, sulat natin the first equation that we have. Okay, we have here speed is equal to frequency lambda. Okay, the second one is frequency. Pag nawawala ang frequency, ito ang formula. C divided by lambda. Okay. So for number 2 problem, let's try to solve this one. Okay, number 2. Okay. For number 2 problem, let me read this. A laser emits light of frequency 4.74 times 10 raised to 14 hertz. Okay. What is the wavelength of the light in nm? Nanometer. This one is nanometer. N-A-N-O meter. That is one of the prefixes for metric unit. Okay? So, meron tayo ditong conversion factor. For every 1 nanometer, you have 10 raised to negative 9 meters. Okay? That is our conversion factor because we are asked to find the value of our wavelength in nanometer. Okay? Not in meter, but rather in nanometer. So, pag kinuha natin, pag nakuha natin yung wavelength, since ang magiging final answer natin or the final value of our wavelength is in meter, we need to convert that into nanometer. And we were going to use this particular conversion factor. So later, or in your senior high school, may introduce naman yung conversion factor na yan in your physical science subject for non-STEM. And for those students na kukuha naman ng STEM, technically, 100% madidiscuss yan, both in chemistry and in general chemistry and general physics. So for problem number 2, ganun pa rin yung formula natin, but this time wavelength naman yung nawawala. So for our wavelength, C is equal to F, dun pa rin tayo magbe-base, pero this time nawawalang wavelength natin, so that's why we need to divide both sides by frequency para makuha natin yung formula or yung equation natin for wavelength. Okay, so wavelength, transfer ko lang sa kabila, is equal to C divided by F. Okay, this is now the formula for our wavelength. Lagay lang natin dito sa hidden message natin. Wavelength is equal to C divided by frequency. Okay, so meron na tayong tatlong equation. Yan lang naman. Okay. So for this particular problem, ito yung gagamitin nating equation. Okay? So burahin ko na ito. And derivation. Yan. So for our given, ano yung mga given natin? For number 1, we have frequency, F, which is equal to 4.74 times 10 raised to 40. Okay, hertz. or simply per second. Okay? So our C, of course, is constant 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. And we are asked to find the value of our wavelength, which is there. So that is our given. This one is the required. Sige, required. So pag gumagawa tayo ng problem kagaya nito or pag nagsosolve tayo, gresa yung gamitin natin. Gresa. Okay. Para complete. Given, required value, equation, solution, and answer. So pag na-complete nyo yan, okay na kayo dyan. So may given ka na, may required ka na. And our equation, as I said, is this one. Lambda is equal to C divided by frequency. Okay, so meron ka na niyan. For our solution now, sana pala ginawa kong red yung graph. Anyway, siguro naman susundan nyo naman ako. So, our solution, just simply substitute all the given in the equation. So, lambda is equal to 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. I hope you can still follow, divided by frequency, which is 4.74 times 10 raised to 14 hertz or per second. Gamitin natin yung per second para mapakita ko sa inyo yung cancellation of unit. Okay? So, to get the value of your wavelength, so you will now have here 3 times 10 raised to 8 divided by 4.74 times 10 raised to 40. Okay. That will give you an answer of 6.33 if two decimal places rounded off times 10 raised to negative 7 meters. Okay. Meters kasi cancel yung per second dito, cancel yung per second sa baba. Meters na lang yung natira natin. At ayun yon. Okay, binaba ko lang. Now, according to the problem, what is the wavelength of the light in nanometer? Since the final answer here for our solution is in meter, kung mapapansin nyo, naka-meter siya. Yan, naka-meter tayo. So technically, kailangan pa natin i-convert yung meter na to into nanometer using this conversion factor. Binigay naman yung conversion factor sa atin. So mabilis na lang at madadalian na lang tayo dito. So paano natin siya i-convert? Kulang na ako sa space or kulang na ako sa whiteboard. Okay, so maybe we can erase now. Pwede nyo na lang balikan ito pero ang final answer natin ito. Sorry, may I erase this again? Okay. So pag hindi nyo masyadong naintindihan or hindi nyo masyadong nasundan yung solution natin sa problem number 2 na ito, you can go back sa video natin. Yun naman yung kinaganda nitong YouTube video or online learning. Pag hindi may hindi masyadong naintindihan kay teacher, you can go back sa mismong lesson video natin. Okay, now. So ito yung lambda value natin. Lambda is equal to 6.33 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters. That is the final answer. And we need to convert this one to nanometer. So anong gagawin natin para ma-convert natin yan into nanometer? We will use this particular conversion factor that we have in the problem. So paano natin siya i-convert? Madali lang. So just simply put the value here or the given here, your final answer, the one that you're going to convert, 6.33 times 10 raised to negative 7 meters. Copy lang. Yan nakasimple. Multiply and then line. Okay, we're going to use this one, this conversion factor. Paano? So in this particular conversion, using a dimensional analysis, always remember, sa dalawang value natin ng conversion factor natin, the one that should be placed under the line should be the same unit with your given or with the one that you're going to convert. So dito, ang unit natin is meter. So technically, sa dalawa, ito yung kukunin natin and we're going to place it here under the line. Okay, ganun lang tayo mag-solve or ganun lang tayo mag-convert. So that's why, instead of this one, ito ang gagamitin ko, 10 raised to negative 9 meter. And I'll put 1 nanometer at the top. Okay. Yan. Since this one is the same unit, kasi this one technically ay over 1. So cancel natin ito at cancel natin ito. Matitira na lang nanometer. So tama ka. Na-convert mo na yung meter to nanometer. Okay? So the final answer for that particular problem is, convert na natin, 6.33 times 10 raised to negative 7, divide. Right? Times 1, which is 6.33 times 10 raised to negative 7 pa rin naman. If you're going to multiply this one by 1, divided by 10 raised to negative 9. Okay? 10 raised to negative 9. So the answer is 633 nanometer. So this is now the final answer. Since ang natira na lang sa yung unit ay nm, technically, yun ay ibababa mo ngayon. That's why the final answer now is 633 nanometer. Okay? So ayan ang answer sa problem number 2 natin. Okay. So let's solve now number 3 and number 4. Let's go back para marami kayong sources or marami kayong pwedeng gawing basis for conversion or for solving problems involving um, electromagnetic wave. Let me present my screen first. Okay. So let's go now with number 3 and number 4. I'll show you number 3 and number 4, tas ganito ulit yung gagawin natin. I just want you to copy number 3 and number 4, and then pause this one for a while, copy number 3 and number 4, leave some spaces para sa solution nyo sa number 3 at sa number 4. Sana sinusundan nyo yung mismong computation or calculation natin sa mga problem na ito para may notes din kayo somehow at magagamit nyo din naman siya in the near future. So number 3, a radio station has a frequency of 9.09 times 10 raised to 7 megahertz. So that is megahertz. What is the wavelength of the radio waves the station emits from its radio tower? So we are asked again to find the wavelength. Wavelength naman ito ngayon. Okay? Number 3, calculate the period of a red light with a wavelength of 4.5 times 10 raised to 7. Okay, that's times 10 raised to 7 meters. Okay? So, nakikita niyo pa rin ba ang aking slide? Okay, nakita naman pala ang aking slide. So now, i-end ko ulit siya. I hope na-copy niyo na yung number 3 and number 4 problems na ito at ganun ulit yung gagawin natin. So let me end my slide or let me end my presentation rather. Wait for a while. Hide. Stop share. Okay. So now, we're going to proceed now with number 3 and number 4 problems. Okay. Yan. So number 3 and number 4. Number 3 muna tayo. For number 3. Okay. Let me erase my where is my eraser? Again, find my eraser. Ito na eraser ko. Ako, tinaguan ako na eraser ko. But anyway, gagamit na lang ako na this one. Okay. So, parang mas better ito kasi mas malinis yung board. Okay. So, panatilihin natin yung mga equation natin na ito kasi ito pa rin ang gagamitin natin for other or for the 2 remaining problems. Okay? So, for number 3 problem, this number 3 problem. Okay. So, number 3 problem, a radio station has a frequency of 9.09 times 10 raised to 7 megahertz. What is the wavelength of the radio waves the station emits from its radio tower? So, wavelength. Kukunin lang natin ulit yung formula na ito. Okay? For the wavelength. Frequency, speed. So, yung wavelength yung kukunin natin kasi what is the wavelength? Okay. So, for our given first, may equation na tayo. Given. Okay, ang mga given natin dyan, may frequency agad tayo, obviously, 9.09 times 10 raised to 7 per second. Yun na lang yung gamitin natin para mapakita ko yung cancellation. Our C is, megahertz pala tayo. megahertz. Okay, so dapat i-ano muna natin siya. Ginawa ko lang hertz kasi mega per second. Parang hindi siya magandang pakinggan. So 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Okay, tapos we're asked to find the value of our wavelength, which is that is the required. Yun yung required natin. Okay. So our equation, meron na ba tayo? Okay, Gresa na. And our equation, there. So lambda is equal to C divided by F. Okay, that's our equation. Pero this time, before we proceed with our solution, okay, before we proceed with our solution, we cannot proceed with our solution actually because your frequency is in megahertz. We need to convert first this one to hertz bago tayo mag-proceed sa solution para madalian na lang tayo. Okay? So that's how I teach my students. Bago ka mag-proceed sa solution mo, kailangan yung mga units mo muna ay panatag ka. Dito, may megahertz tayo. So let's try to convert first megahertz to hertz para magdire-diretso na tayo, para maging per second lang siya instead of hertz. Okay? So how can we able to convert megahertz to hertz? Okay, sige, dun muna tayo mag-convert muna tayo. So, ganun pa rin yung gagawin natin pag nag-convert tayo. So, parang ginawa lang nating dimensional analysis kanina. We just simply write, ang tawag kasi dito sa way na to ay dimensional analysis. Times 10 raised to 7 megahertz. Okay, ganun pa rin. Multiply line. So, meron tayong conversion factor dun sa taas. At ang kailangan lang natin gawin ay ilagay, sino ang ilalagay natin sa ibaba ng line. So we just simply put sino? 1 megahertz ba or sa 10 raised to 6 hertz? So technically, we should write 1 megahertz. Ito naman ang ilalagay natin. Sir, bakit yan ang ilalagay natin? Kasi we need to cancel this one. Okay? Tapos 10 raised to 6 hertz sa taas. Kung titignan nyo, makakancel natin ito at saka ito. Okay? Pag na-cancel yung dalawa na yun, matitira na lang yung hertz. So technically, tama ka ng ginagawa. Kasi ang kailangan mo, ang pinaka-goal mo is to convert megahertz to hertz. And you are on the right track. Because ang natira mo na lang na unit, kapag nagda-dimensional analysis ka, ito ang technique, kung ano yung matitira, siya yung mismong kino-convert mo. At pag na-achieve mo yon, ibig sabihin, your conversion using dimensional analysis is correct. Okay? So, there. You just simply multiply 9.09 times 10 raised to 7 there times 10 raised to 6. Okay, so our value now for frequency for hertz is 9.09 times 10 raised to 13. So still 9.09 times 10 raised to 13 hertz na lang. Kasi convert na natin siya from megahertz to hertz. So, convert natin siya technically, we can write this one now. Tapos pag ganun, pwede na tayo mag-solve kasi mabilis na lang siya, tama? So, pwede natin burahin ito. Tapos, ilagay na natin dito as 13. O, bilis na lang natin kasi na-convert na lang. Tapos, you can now proceed with your solution using the formula that you have or using the equation that you have there. Okay. So, this one is hertz or per second. Okay. So, our solution now, solution. Okay. So, lambda is equal to 3 times 10, which is our speed of light, raised to 8 meter per second, divided by frequency, which is 9.09 times 10 raised to 13 na ngayon, per second. Okay. Cancel yung per second, matitira na lang sa'yo meter. So, madali na lang. Tama? So, we just simply divide 3 times 10 raised to 8 by 9.09 times 10 raised to 30. Okay. So, the answer is 3.30 times 10 raised to negative 6. Okay. Unit meters. Okay, so 3.30 times 10 raised to negative 6 meter. Okay, so this is now the final answer for number 3 problem. For yung number 3 problem na yan, ito yung answer natin. Okay, sana naintindihan nyo at nakafollow kayo. So let's proceed now with the last problem. Okay, for the last problem that we have, tago ulit natin yung mga formula na yan. Number 4, that's the problem. Allow me to erase again. Okay, so for number 4 problem, calculate the period of a red light with a wavelength of 4.5 times 10 raised to 7 meters. This time, para nakarinig tayo ng bagong kailangang hanapin, which is the period. Okay, period which is also pertains to time. Okay, so that is time, um, which is also known as time. So that's how we define period. Okay, and this is particularly in waves. So pag kinuha natin yung period ngayon, as we all know, kagaya kanina sinabi ko, when we get period, that is F, or when we get frequency, actually the formula in getting the frequency is F is equal to 1 divided by the period, which is time. Actually, yung time din to, or the period itself, for the waves. So to get the period, since this one per period, para makuha natin yung period, since this is our equation here, we just simply uh, derive it from this particular equation. So, pwede nating masabi that the period, ito naman yung kailangan natin, ito yung kukunin natin. So, technically, pag derive natin siya, pinagpapalit lang natin kapag ganito, is equal to 1 over f. Okay? So, ganyan yung technique ko para hindi na kayo mahirapan pa. Just simply, um, parang kumbaga, switch T and F. Okay? So, technically, ganyan lang tayo kumuha ng period natin. So, we will use this one. Another formula for the period is equal to 1 over F. Okay. Sana sinusulat mo yung formula na ito. This one is for the speed. This one is for the frequency. Teka, lagyan ko lang. This one is for the wavelength. Pag nawawala ang wavelength, ito ang gagamiting formula. And this one kapag nawawala ang period natin. Okay? So, there. Tago na ulit natin sila. Gagamitin natin ito. Pero, nawawala pa si frequency. Wala pa tayong frequency. So, technically, we need to get first our frequency kasi mapapansin nyo sa problem natin, calculate the period of a red light with a wavelength of 4.5 times 10 raised to 7. Yun pa lang yung given wavelength. So, we need to get the frequency, and after getting the frequency, we can use that to get the period para mag-come up tayo sa period. Okay, buburahin ko na to. Equation na ito. Basta ang dalawa yung magiging equation natin. Period muna, and then after that, or rather, frequency muna, then after that, period na. So our given there, tulat ulit natin yung given natin. Our wavelength is equal to 4.5 times 10 raised to 7 meters. Our speed is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Tapos frequency required. Ito ang nawawala sa atin, yung frequency natin. And at the same time, kailangan natin yung period. Required din ito. Since yun yung pinapahanap sa atin. Okay. Now, so paano natin siya kukunin ngayon? Sabi ko, the first solution or equation pala. Kunin muna natin yung equation. Equation. Okay. Ano yung equation natin? Frequency, dalawa, C over lambda. And aside from that, meron tayong T is equal to 1 over M. Okay, so yan yung dalawang equation na gagamitin natin. Doon muna tayo sa F. Solution. Okay. So for the solution, frequency is equal to 3, substitute lang natin, times 10 raised to 8 meter per second, divided by our lambda, which is 4.5 times 10 raised to 7 meters. And the frequency there is what? Cancel, cancel. Okay. So 3 times 10 raised to 8 divided by 4.5 times 10 raised to 7. Okay. So the frequency is 6.67. Okay. Two decimal places na lang natin rounded off. Per second kasi per second yung natira sa taas. So we can use this value to get the period. Okay. Period naman yung hanapin natin. So T is equal to 1 divided by, substitute the value of frequency, which is 6.67. We can use per second or S negative 1. Dito naman, S negative 1 yung gagamitin ko kasi nasa baba siya. Okay? Yan, there. Now, for T, anong magiging period natin? Pwede rin naman S negative 1 or per second. Ganun din naman. So our period now is 1 divided by 6.67. Wait, wala ba tong times 10? 3. Let me check lang. 4.5. Wala. So 6.67 lang talaga siya. So 1 divided by 6.67, that will give you an answer of 0.15. Two decimal places rounded off, seconds na lang. Okay. Kasi S negative 1 siya. So pag kinuha natin period, that will become seconds na lang. Okay? So that is the unit for time. So this is now our period. Yan yung answer natin sa problem number 4 natin. Okay, I hope naintindihan nyo lahat ng mga solution natin. So let's go back with our PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So for your exercises, I want you to answer these 2 questions by yourself. Gusto ko i-solve nyo siya. Isulat nyo muna, then try to solve it and make the basis or make our computation as your basis sa ating or sa number 1 and number 2 exercises na ito. Gawin yung basis yung mga ginawa nating problems or sinolve nating problems from problem 1 to problem 4 to solve these exercises 1 and 2. Okay? So pause for a while and then solve it. Try to solve it ng kayo lang, ng sarili. Okay. For our focus question, I just want to ask if we are able or if we are able to enumerate the characteristics of electromagnetic wave. I believe we enumerated it. Ano yon? We have radio waves. We have microwaves. We have infrared rays. Or we have infrared waves. We have visible light. We have ultraviolet rays. We have X-rays. And the last one is the gamma ray. Okay? So, did we able to explain how electromagnetic waves are produced and propagated? Yes. Explain natin siya, right? So, they being produced and propagated. They are being produced through an oscillation of a charge or electric charge, and they are propagated in a way that the electric field and magnetic field and the direction of propagation are all perpendicular to one another. Okay, so we're able to explain that. Next, did we able to compare the relative wavelengths, frequencies, and energies of the different regions of electromagnetic spectrum? Yes, nagawa natin ito kasi yung relative wavelengths nila from radio to gamma, the relative wavelength is decreasing from radio to gamma arrangement, while in terms of their frequency and energy from radio to gamma, it is increasing because the wavelength is decreasing. As we said, that the energy and the frequency are both inversely proportional to our wavelength. Okay, so we are able to um, discuss this particular learning target. So the last learning target, solve problems involving speed of electromagnetic waves and the other components such as frequency and wavelength and period, yes, nakapag-solve naman tayo ng maayos. And I hope naintindihan nyo siya. Okay? So, na-achieve natin lahat ng learning targets natin. I'm so happy. I hope that you achieved also yung lahat ng learning targets natin na ito habang or after you listen or you watch this video. And our focus question, I want you to answer this one by yourself. How do the regions in the electromagnetic spectrum differ in terms of wavelength, frequency, and energy? So, kayong sumagot, I just want you to answer it through writings, bahala kayo, or through or through recitation, sa inyo yan dyan, sa mga places nyo. Try to answer this one. If you can answer this particular focus question, um, therefore, you listen, you understand the lesson. Okay? So, my references ay ito lahat. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you have learned something from me today or to this lesson video. Sana natutunan nyo yung lesson number 1 sa physics, second quarter of science grade 10, which is Introduction to Electromagnetic Waves. Thank you so much for listening.